Beloved chosen one, this is the moment heaven has been waiting to witness in your life. Not because you suddenly became valuable, and not because your name was only now written in divine remembrance, but because you finally stopped wrestling with the voice of God and started walking in step with it. The atmosphere around you shifts the moment your will bows to His. What looked small on earth was never small in the spirit. That decision to obey, that private surrender, that quiet turning away from what drained you and pulled you out of alignment, sent a sound through realms you cannot see. All of heaven erupted in joy because your obedience was not a casual choice. It was a holy turning point. You know how long the struggle has been. You have felt the tension of delay, the ache of inner conflict, the exhaustion of knowing what God required while still fighting fear, comfort, memory, and uncertainty. You were not battling a simple habit. You were standing at the crossing point between your old nature and your true calling. That is why the pressure felt so intense. That is why the battle seemed to follow you into quiet places. The enemy wanted you distracted, delayed, and divided because a divided heart cannot walk boldly into divine purpose. But now something has changed. You are no longer negotiating with what God already made clear. You are moving. And when you move with God, heaven responds. Not with hesitation, not with suspicion, but with celebration. There is joy when a soul aligns with truth. There is joy when a child of God stops running in circles and steps onto the narrow path with full awareness that the cost is real but the reward is eternal. Your obedience carries weight because it proves that your heart still answers when God calls. It proves that the oil has not dried up. It proves that what He placed inside you was never destroyed, only delayed, as Jesus Himself declared in the Gospel of Luke, chapter 15. Verse 7, I say unto you, that likewise joy shall be in heaven over one sinner that repenteth, more than over 99 just persons which need no repentance. Receive that truth deeply. Heaven is not silent over your surrender. Heaven is rejoicing over it. The God who saw every tear, every hesitation, every lonely midnight prayer, also sees this turning. You have not missed your moment. You have stepped into it. This is not the end of your struggle story. This is the beginning of your alignment story. Walk forward without looking back. Stay under His will, and let that obedience become your strength, your covering, and your evidence that you were always meant to answer the call. Like, share, subscribe, and comment 317 if you are choosing obedience over delay today. You begin to understand now that the pain was never pointless. The long nights, the closed doors, the betrayals that left you speechless, and the seasons when no one seemed able to recognize the weight you were carrying were not signs that God had abandoned you. They were part of the hidden shaping of your yes. What felt like loss was often separation. What felt like punishment was often protection. What felt like delay was often heaven refusing to let you arrive too early in a place your spirit had not yet grown strong enough to sustain. You were being trained in secret for a response that had to come from conviction, not emotion. There were moments when you almost gave up on becoming the person God showed you in glimpses. You wondered why the road was harder for you than for others who seemed less serious, less prayerful, less surrendered. But the answer is in what rests over your life. A deeper calling often requires a deeper breaking. God was not trying to destroy your heart. He was purifying your dependence so that when your moment of decision arrived, you would not say yes because it was easy, popular, or immediately rewarding. You would say yes because truth had become more precious to you than comfort. That is why the wounds mattered. They exposed what still held power over you. They revealed where fear still whispered, where approval still tempted, where old attachments still fought to keep their place. pain became a mirror, and that mirror was merciful. It showed you what had to die so obedience could live. Even the tears became part of the altar. Every disappointment stripped away another false support. Every unanswered question drove your roots deeper into God. And now, because of what you survived, your surrender carries a maturity it did not have before. The Spirit spoke through the prophet Jeremiah, chapter 18, verse 4. And the vessel that he made of clay was marred in the hand of the potter, so he made it again another vessel, as seemed good to the potter to make it. That is your story in this hour. You were not discarded in the breaking. You were remade through it. The places where you thought your life had become ruined were the very places where the potter pressed deeper purpose into you. He reshaped your desires, your instincts, your endurance, and your discernment. So now when you walk in His will, you do not walk as someone untouched by hardship. You walk as someone refined by it. And that is why your yes carries such power now. It was born out of fire, silence, patience, and the holy reconstruction of a soul that refused to let suffering have the final word. Now you can see why the resistance intensified whenever you moved closer to obedience. Darkness was never reacting to your weakness alone. It was reacting to your alignment. The moment you began to loosen your grip on old patterns, old compromises, and old fears, something in the unseen realm recognized that you were no longer content to remain spiritually asleep. That is why confusion increased. That is why certain relationships shifted. That is why distractions seemed louder, temptations felt sharper, and weariness tried to settle over you like a heavy garment. The battle became fierce because your obedience carries consequences far beyond what your natural eyes can measure. The enemy does not waste that level of opposition on a life with no kingdom impact. The pressure around you was evidence that your yes was dangerous to the plans built against you. Your surrender breaks agreements that were never supposed to follow you this far. Your obedience tears down inner altars built by fear, people-pleasing, shame, and delay. When you walk in God's will, you do not merely improve your mood or stabilize your direction. You disrupt cycles. You cancel patterns. You close doors that darkness hoped would stay open for generations. That is why the warfare around your decision felt personal. It was personal because your freedom was going to free more than just you. There were voices that tried to convince you that compromise was wisdom, that partial obedience was enough, that silence was safer than surrender. But heaven kept calling you higher, deep inside. You knew that staying half-committed would only keep the war alive. Real peace would not come from blending in with what God told you to leave. Real peace would come when your whole heart stood in agreement with His voice. And that is exactly why this season matters so much. You are not just surviving attack. You are learning how to stand. The apostle wrote in the letter to the Ephesians, chapter 6, verse 11, "Put on the whole armor of God, that ye may be able to stand against the wiles of the devil." That word meets you here with precision. You are not called to panic in this war. You are called to stand clothed in what God provides. Truth is your defense. Righteousness is your covering. Faith is your shield when arrows fly from directions you did not expect. The more you align with God, the less power deception has to name you, steer you, or frighten you. That is why hell resists your progress, but it is also why heaven strengthens your feet. You were never meant to retreat into old darkness. You were chosen to advance through it with spiritual authority, holy clarity, and a heart that no longer bows to intimidation. Comment still standing as your declaration that this battle did not break you, and that your obedience is now stronger than the forces that tried to silence it. And because you stood through the war, something begins to unlock that could not open while your heart was divided. Obedience does not merely protect you from what is wrong. It positions you for what has been waiting in the Spirit all along. There are doors that talent cannot open, connections that striving cannot force, and assignments that remain hidden until your will comes fully under God's direction. This is why your surrender matters so deeply in this hour. You are stepping out of delay and into movement. What once felt sealed is beginning to respond to your alignment. What once seemed distant is now drawing near, because the key was never human effort alone. The key was yieldedness. You may notice that your discernment is becoming sharper. Things you once tolerated now trouble your spirit quickly. Places that once entertained you now feel empty. Voices that once influenced you no longer carry the same authority. That is not loss. That is clarity. God is refining your inner hearing so you can recognize the difference between noise and instruction, between pressure and calling, between emotional urgency and divine timing. This sharper discernment is part of the opening. You cannot walk into your calling while remaining blind to what drains your oil. So heaven is teaching you to guard what has been entrusted to you. At the same time, fresh strength begins to rise where exhaustion once lived. Not because life suddenly becomes easy, but because purpose gives weight to your steps. When you know you are walking where God directed you, even the burden carries a different sound. You are no longer wandering. You are building. You are no longer reacting to everything around you. You are being positioned by heaven with intention. What starts now may appear small to others, but the Spirit recognizes it as activation. Your yes has moved from private surrender into visible assignment. The ancient words recorded in Proverbs chapter 3, verse 6. In all thy ways acknowledge him, and he shall direct thy paths. Hold tightly to that promise. Direction is one of the rewards of obedience. God is not leading you halfway only to abandon you in uncertainty. He is establishing your steps, correcting your pace, and teaching your hands what to carry in this next season. That is why peace is returning in places where confusion once ruled. That is why opportunities begin to look different. That is why your calling no longer feels like a distant idea but a living reality unfolding one obedient step at a time. And as this message continues to strengthen those who are also learning to walk in His will, some choose to support that work through giving, not out of pressure, but as a quiet act of agreement with what God is building through this word. And now you arrive at the place your former self could not have carried. This is not a crown made of human applause, temporary attention, or fragile success. This is the weight of a life that has been tested, purified, and brought into agreement with the will of God. What rests ahead of you is not shallow reward, it is establishment. It is the settling of your spirit after long warfare. It is the holy evidence that surrender never leads to emptiness when the one receiving your surrender is the Lord. You feared that obedience might cost you too much, but now you begin to see that disobedience was the true thief. It kept peace at a distance. It kept purpose blurred. It kept your strength scattered. But your yes changed the direction of your life. The beauty of this hour is that heaven does not merely call you chosen. Heaven also matures you into someone who can carry what was promised. That is why the road was narrow. That is why the pruning was painful. God was not preparing a moment for your ego. He was preparing a mantle for your spirit. A crown in the kingdom is never only about honor. It is also about responsibility, endurance, and likeness to Christ. You are being trusted with more because your heart is no longer asking how little it can surrender while still remaining blessed. Now your heart is asking how fully it can obey. That change is sacred. It means your inner life has shifted. You no longer need the old validations that once distracted you. You no longer measure progress by the opinions of people who could never see what God wrote over you. You are learning to value eternal fruit over quick recognition. That is the posture of someone ready to carry lasting purpose. The crown reserved for your faithfulness is not just something you wear in the future. It is something your life begins to reflect now through steadiness, wisdom, humility, and spiritual authority. The apostle reminds us in the second letter to Timothy, chapter 4, verse 7, I have fought a good fight. I have finished my course. I have kept the faith. Let that word settle into your bones. This is the kind of life you're building now. Not a life of constant drifting, but a life that finishes well. Not a life ruled by impulse, but one governed by conviction. Not a life wasted in delay, but a life that answers heaven with faithfulness. The joy that erupted when you stepped into His will was only the beginning. Ahead of you is greater clarity, deeper peace, and a legacy marked by obedience. Comment 842 below as your sign that you are choosing faithfulness all the way to the finish. If this message has found you like rain finding cracked ground, then do not let the moment pass without leaving a trace of light behind. A light can be your quiet way of placing a candle in the window, letting this truth shine a little farther into someone else's midnight. A share can become a bridge laid across the waters for another soul still searching for solid ground. A comment can be like carving a small testimony into stone, a witness that heaven spoke and your heart answered. To subscribe is simply to remain near this river, returning again when your spirit needs bread, fire, and remembrance. And if your heart feels led to donate, let it be like adding oil to a lamp already burning, so its glow can keep reaching those still wandering through the dim places, hoping for one voice that sounds like home.